world this week. And we continue to have our feedback, but now I think it is gone. But so I just wanted to say we have an interesting guest here today, if her ears are not blown out from the feedback. Melissa Racella is here with us today to help me talk about the news and things that are going on this week. Now, she is a successful businesswoman here in the Philippines and mother of three and a champion triathlete. Can I say that?
Good evening.
So you're a, because that's triathlete, you do Ironmans, which is you swim and you run and you ride a bike. Yes. So I can actually do all those things, just not at the same extent. So I can swim across the pool, I can ride my bike to the store, and I can run up the stairs in my house. But yours is a lot longer than that. Oh, yeah, that was about 30 years ago. But how long is an Ironman? Yeah, so you how many Ironmans have you done?
No.
Yeah, so you swim for like how long?
For 17.
And you did this and you're not dead.
I'm not.
Yes, you are still alive, which is great for us. Now, okay, let's before we get to the news, do you remember what you did last Friday?
Last Friday?
Yes.
I think I was preparing for a bike ride.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you went out. You know what last Friday was? It was
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th, which is the most unlucky day of the year. I don't know how many Friday 13th there are, but anyway, last week was Friday the 13th. Do you know why Friday the 13th is so bad?
I heard before that it was about the goddess of magic, Frigg. It was named after her.
Okay.
And so they just...
That's as good as any of the excuses that I'm going to give. Okay. Because I looked this up, and it turns out, because on the web everything is true. So I looked it up on the web, and nobody really knows why that is considered like the worst day. But I looked up in Norse mythology when Loki, Loki, you remember from the movie Thor? Yes. He's the god of mischief. He crashed a banquet there in Valhalla, which is the heaven of the Norse mythology. And supposedly he brought the number to 13 gods, and he tricked the blind god Hador into shooting his brother, the god of joy and goodness, with a mistletoe-tipped arrow. And then he killed him instantly, and that was supposedly on Friday. Mistletoe is very poisonous. That's why you put it up high so the cats can't get to it, because it's very poisonous. But supposedly, one of the big ones is that there were 12 people at the Last Supper with Jesus, and then
and because he was the number 13th person.
Judas came in at the end, and he was number 13. And then, of course, Jesus was crucified on Friday. So that was one of the reasons they... But there's another thing that I also read, that Adam and Eve ate from the forbidden fruit on a Friday.
Really?
Yes. I don't know how you would prove that. But that was there on the web. And also that Cain might have murdered Abel on Friday the 13th. That's allegedly. So, everything on the web is true, although it seems to me the most plausible one, and I read a whole bunch of them, that was in 1907, when a broker pushed the idea of Unlucky Friday in order to manipulate the stock market. So that seems, and on Britain, they used to hang everybody, all the criminals, on Friday the 13th.
Wow.
So... and then, movie the Friday the 13th and the Da Vinci Code and all that. But anyway,
the floors in the building, they don't have
They don't have a 13.
right now.
That's fascinating, isn't it? That it's that big a thing. Now, there's an interesting thing I wanted to try, and that is there is a condition out there for people who are afraid of Friday the 13th, people that will not come out of their house on Friday the 13th because of this condition. And just now, on the back of my Starbucks receipt, I wrote down the word of what that condition is, and I wanted you to read it to everybody. So can you read that word for everybody?
𝗡𝗲𝘄𝘀.
You know what? That's pretty close. I thought you would totally screw it up. It's very close. It's almost what that word is. It's it's 20 some letters in that word. Anyway, speaking of words, dictionary.com this week, they released the word of the year. And they just announced it. And it's one of the oldest words in history, yet continues to be a source of intense personal importance and societal debate. And the word is woman.
Woo, woo, man.
I had a feeling you might say it. I looked it up. The definition of woman is an adult female person. Who would have guessed? So there was a time back in 2020. This is how they figure these things out. There was a time back in 2022 last year where the lookup of the word woman went up 1,417%. And the reason being a bunch of things. The first black woman to sit on the U.S. Supreme Court. In her confirmation, she was asked the incredibly stupid question from a senator to provide the definition of the word woman. They were trying to trip her up on the subject of transgender. So they asked her that question. And when the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, that whole thing about abortion, and in the midterms, more women became governors in the United States than ever before. The death of the Queen of England, the 22-year-old Iranian girl that was allegedly killed by police when her hair fell out of her hijab, and all the incredible people that supported her and came out and protested the government in Iran, which is insane that anybody would do that, because when you protest on Iran, that's against the law, like punishable by death. Yes. The pay of the U.S. women's soccer team, the Brittany Griner imprisonment in Russia. Anyway, women as a group had a huge impact on the world in 2022, and so now they are the word woman is the word of the year
For 2023.
2022. Yeah, we haven't had 2023 yet. This is
okay.
last year's word. And some of the previous words of the year, pandemic, obviously was one of the words, misinformation, complicit, xenophobia, identity, some of the words, the big words. They look at who, on dictionary.com, the most times that people look up a word, and then that usually is the word of the year.
I get it.
So that's where they get that. So anyway, let's get to the news. Now, the biggest story of the week that I see all over the world is about the lawyers that were cleaning up President Joe Biden's old office in D.C., and they came across this folder that said personal on it, and they opened it up and looked at it, and it had some sheets in it that said classified. So there were very few sheets, and they went to his residence, because once they found them, they're like, okay, let's look at everything. They went to his residence. They found 5 more pages of documents that said classified. Now, ordinarily, this would be no big deal, but
They found it in his garage, too.
they found it in his garage, right, near his Corvette, they say. The locked garage, he said. So the problem with this, ordinarily, if you find, obviously they were packing up his stuff, and they packed up some documents by mistake. And of all the hundreds of thousands of documents they had there, they found like 1 document in one place and 5 documents in another, 5 pages in another place. And the reason this is such a big deal is because right now, Donald Trump may be indicted for taking classified documents out of the, the White House and taking them home with him. Now, right now, they're trying to compare those two. And it's not really that comparable. I mean, it depends on whether you're a Democrat or Republican on how you're going to look at it. But what I'm saying is, you know, Joe Biden obviously didn't even know these documents were there. The people in the National Archives didn't know the documents were there. They've been there for 6 years. And the difference between Donald Trump, he took those documents home and they said, you need to bring those documents back. And he's like, I'm not bringing them back. And they said, no, you have to bring them back. And so they brought back some of them, and the lawyer said there are no more. But people in Trump's own orbit were saying, oh yeah, they're there. There's more. There's some really, and the ones that Donald Trump took were what they call the highest classification, like the super duper secret classified level 5 documents. And he wouldn't bring them back. And so what he did was he moved them. He moved them to a place where they didn't know that they were. And so they finally had to raid his home with the FBI and get their documents back. And so he's been in a lot of trouble about this because of that. So now this fact that they found this one page and then other one, the 5 pages in Joe Biden's place, well, Joe Biden does the same thing.
So I guess the main difference is the hypocrisy issue right now?
That's what, you know, everybody's yelling hypocrisy. But the way I try to explain it, especially people that maybe are not so familiar with this story, it's like if you go into a grocery store and when you leave and you get outside and your kid has a piece of candy in his hand. And so you go back in the store and you give him the candy back, or you pay for the candy. Whereas maybe Donald Trump goes into the store, he puts gold watches and diamond rings in his pockets, and he runs out of the store. He runs out of the store, and they tell him to bring the stuff back, and he's like, oh, I don't have it. I don't have it. See this document here from my lawyer? It says I don't have it anymore.
But Joe Biden goes, oh, I didn't know they were there, so here's the candy.
Yeah, here's the candy bag. So, you know, one of the things, you know, like I said, the stuff that Donald Trump was that was highly classified. I mean, that was the top level classification. The stuff that Joe Biden, we don't really know what it is yet, but it seems to be, like I said, it's a single page from one place, it's 5 pages from another. Donald Trump had hundreds of pages. And I don't want to say that, okay, well, one is worse than the other, but one is worse than the other. You know, they told him to bring the documents back, and he wouldn't bring them back. And then they had to finally go in and raid his home and take them back. So when they found the documents in Joe Biden's house, you know what they did? They immediately called and returned the documents in the same day.
Okay.
So, I don't know. Seems slightly different, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not trying to be one-sided, but I'm being one-sided because it just seems like that anyway. But what else happened this week? President Biden went to the border of Mexico to meet the president of Mexico, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. I just love to say his name. And the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, they're calling this the summit, the Three Amigos Summit. And they're talking about illegal drugs, fentanyl smuggling, climate change, manufacturing, all the same stuff that they always talk about. Crossing the border illegally, you know, the usual. Because right now, I don't know if you know, in Mexico, the relations between Mexico and the United States have been somewhat strained lately because of, you know, a lot of issues. The United States had a big summit and they didn't want to invite Cuba and Venezuela and Nicaragua because of the human rights issues that are going on there. So the Mexican president got really mad, and so they're trying to get back together.
Okay.
Become friends again. You know, speaking of Mexico, do you know who El Chapo is?
El Chapo, the drug lord?
The drug lord.
Yeah.
So anyway, El Chapo, we've talked about El Chapo so many times, and here's why. We've talked about it multiple times, and I'm just correlating this because it's the Mexican president, but he was the kingpin of all Mexican drugs. For many years, he was the main source in the United States for cocaine and meth and marijuana and heroin. He learned the business from his father. It's a family business. Anyway, he was, the reason we talked about him so much on the show was, first he was arrested and he escaped by hiding in a laundry cart. And like 78 people helped him escape, and it took like $2.5 million of paying off all these guards and everything, whatever, so he could get out in a laundry cart. And he hid for a while, then they caught him again. And when they caught him again, this time they put him in a maximum security prison, and the CCTV cameras could see him except when he was in the shower. And so one day he went in the shower, and he never came out of the shower. And they went into his cell, and they found a hole under the shower, and he had a tunnel dug 33 feet down, 1 mile long. It was 6 feet high, and it had a motorcycle in it.
Wow.
I could ride the motorcycle through the tunnel. So anyway, they went on a massive manhunt to catch this guy again. And finally, they raided his home. He was in the home. He escaped via tunnel under the house. He's very good at tunnels. That's how they got the drugs in the United States, by the way. They built a tunnel underneath the United States border and came out on the other side. And they used, it was
Big enough for a motorcycle.
Yeah, it was incredible. They showed the video of the tunnel, and it was amazingly built, like really good, well done, everything. Had a ventilation system. Anyway, so these police, they finally caught up to him, and he told them, he said, I'm going to give you all this money if you let me go. And they're like, we're not going to take the money. And he goes, you're going to die. And so they sent 40 assassins to kill these policemen who were holding him. And they took him from the police station and went to a motel. And they stayed at a motel till they could get him to an airport. They flew him a secret airport. Anyway, they finally got him to the United States. And the United States, they tried him for whatever. And he got life imprisonment plus 30 years. So the whole point of me telling this story is they just arrested his son. And
Who inherited the business.
Who inherited the business. So his son, who is 𝗡𝗲𝘄𝘀, also known as the mouse. Go figure. He was running the family business. And they came in, they arrested him. 30 people died in trying to arrest this guy. Bullets were flying all over the place. In fact, a commercial plane that was flying overhead got hit by bullets.
Oh my God.
That's how many bullets they were shooting. So anyway, they're finally taking him, extraditing him to the United States because of he's the king of fentanyl. He sells fentanyl. Anyway, so they're taking him up there. 𝗡𝗲𝘄𝘀 is his name. He's the oldest son. The other 3 sons are still on the run, but he had a $5 million bounty on his head. And the other guy, 𝗡𝗲𝘄𝘀, I love that.
Is it the brother?
𝗡𝗲𝘄𝘀. 𝗡𝗲𝘄𝘀 is the guy that actually is the creator of the whole cartel that these guys run.
Right.
He's like old man, 75 years old. He has a $15 million bounty on his head. Can you imagine having $15 million on your head? In fact, if I knew that you had $15 million on your head, I wonder, would I turn you in? I don't know. But in Connecticut this week in the United States, they have legalized the sale of recreational cannabis.
Recreational?
Cannabis.
Oh, cannabis.
Yeah, Connecticut,
Okay.
Connecticut is one of the only states that calls it cannabis. They don't call it pot or marijuana or weed. They call it, it's cannabis. Because, Connecticut's a very uppity, very rich society place. And the governor of Connecticut says, today marks a turning point in the injustices caused by the war on drugs, most notably how there is a legal alternative to the dangerous, unregulated underground market of cannabis. You know how much money in cannabis they sold on the first day? $250,000.
On the first day.
On the first day. So you can carry now 1.5 ounces of pot or weed or marijuana or cannabis.
So just really the raw state of it you can bring in the plane.
Yeah, I don't know if you can take it on the plane, but you can have it. You can walk around with a doobie, I think as they call it, and smoke it outside. Do you think that marijuana will ever be legalized in the Philippines?
Medically, I guess.
Medically, yeah.
Because I have a friend, his mom was in so much pain, and she was taking, he was giving it to her, and he said that the doctor approved it. So probably medically.
Because I wonder, there's been some senators that have talked about it here, so I don't know what. But and I know the Philippines is kind of either one side or the other when the whole drug issue is. But But anyway, not thinking of drugs now. This is quite a stretch to get to this, but because I'm thinking right now about Elvis Presley.
Okay.
Took a lot of drugs. But in a sad note about Elvis Presley, his daughter died this week.
Yeah.
Lisa Marie. Yeah. 54 years old. She had gone to the Golden Globe Awards because of the movie about her father, where Aston Butler won the Golden Globe for the portrayal of Elvis.
Right.
And her mother was there, Priscilla, 77. She was just 54 years old, though.
She was also into drugs.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been looking up because I wanted to find out what the reason was. And they keep saying, cardiac arrest. Yes, okay, she got cardiac arrest, but they don't know exactly why she had a cardiac arrest.
Can be caused by a lot of things.
Yeah.
And one of them can be abuse.
Oh, for sure.
In the past.
I mean, her father, died at almost the same age he died at 48. What did Elvis die at 48? I mean, he was, he took tons and tons of drugs. But, like I said, she didn't have a heart attack because a heart attack is when the arteries are blocked and you can't get blood to the heart. She died of a cardiac arrest. The heart stopped. And they restarted her heart, but it was already too long. And her brain was already, dead. And so the family decided if she has another cardiac arrest, just let it go. And so she did. While she was there, they had her in an induced coma. She was brain dead. And so she had another cardiac arrest, and they decided not to revive her.
Okay.
So they didn't revive her. So she was married 4 times. She was married to Michael Jackson
Nicolas Cage.
Nicholas. This is a strange melange of people to be married to. And of course, we all remember, I don't know how old you were, but when she married Michael Jackson and they had the kiss on the television, the most awkward kiss you've ever seen on television. It's like, oh, yes, we're married. And they tried to kiss each other, and it was obvious they had never kissed before. But
it was sad because she's still, her son committed suicide.
Last year, or in 2020.
2020?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And her son is buried next to her father,
Graceland.
and she will be buried next to him at Graceland. Have you ever been to Graceland?
No, but I've been wanting to bring my mom.
Oh, okay. I've been to Graceland. You know what's interesting about Graceland is the house is absolutely hideous. Elvis had the strangest tastes of anybody I've ever seen.
Well, it was the late 70s.
It was in the late 70s. He had, there's a room with fur. Fur on the carpet is fur, and the ceiling has
everything's fur.
Anyway, it's interesting. But I saw that Elvis movie. By the way, if you haven't seen that Elvis movie, it's really good. It's a really good movie. That movie with that guy, Aston Butler, he does a really good job of playing the part of Elvis. But also this week, Jeff Beck, the guitar player, if you're into music there back in the 80s and 90s, Jeff Beck, the great guitar player, died. Robbie Bachman from Bachman Turner Overdrive also passed away. The Earth and Fire drummer passed away this week. Gangsta Boo, who I don't know, but is a very famous rapper, died at 43. But one person I do know that I grew up with his father was Robbie Knievel.
Ooh,
Evel Knievel's son, who was also an incredible, he broke all kinds of records of jumping motorcycles over things. Now, when I was a kid, we grew up watching Evel Knievel because he used to crash. That's why we loved him. We loved him all. He'd jump over something and crash every time.
He was like the Elvis of motorcycle.
So anyway, Robbie did not crash as much as his father did, but he died at age 60 from cancer. So very sad note about them. But moving on to some of the stuff that's over here in Asia, Asian news, Indonesia, this week they deployed a warship to the North Natuna Sea to see what those Chinese Coast Guard guys are doing.
Good for them.
There's a Chinese Coast Guard vessel that's hanging out over there, and they want to know what's going on. And so they deployed a warship, not to fight it, but to kind of like, and the reason many people are speculating that thing is there is, Indonesia just made a deal for its gas field that they know is under the ocean. There's Vietnam's oil field. All these things are right there. And Indonesia approved a $3 billion development project there because they believe there's 22 billion barrels of oil and 290 trillion cubic feet of gas under that ocean. And China claims it, and they claim it. Very similar to the Philippines. So
I heard they have a plane and they have a drone to monitor the activities of China. Let's go Indonesia.
You gotta, I mean, if you don't, they're going to sneak in and do something. Why would China want to be there if there wasn't something there that they could use? And I think that's the same problem that we're having with the Philippines. Now, the Philippine Supreme Court, this week, I believe, they put the kibosh on that Philippine-Chinese agreement from 2005 to explore the sea. And the reason that they came up for doing this, partly because of the 2016 Philippines won the rights to that sea, but now there's a legal issue with that partnership because a company in the Philippines must be mostly owned by Filipino. It must be a 60-40 split, and it cannot be, China cannot own the whole thing. And so that's why the Supreme Court stepped in. Now, I may have this not exactly right, but that's kind of what I got from this, is what the reason was. I'm sure it's much more complex than what I'm saying, but this is the reason why the Supreme Court stepped in and put the kibosh on that whole deal between the Philippines and China. So the president of the Philippines said, we're just going to have to do it without China.
Cool.
Yeah,
Really?
Why not? Why not? I mean, can you imagine what it would be like if the Philippines was able to strike oil at the bottom of the Philippine Sea? I mean, that would just be an amazing thing for the country. So I think if they allow China to do it for them, I think something would go horribly wrong, and the Philippines would get screwed out of their oil. But I'm one of those people that believes wholeheartedly that there's something under that sea. I don't know. We shall see. Speaking of things like that, we're not talking about war, but speaking of the war, the Ukraine, which we talk about a lot here on the show, Russians sent some missiles into an apartment building this week and killed 12 people. They blew up the infrastructure. A lot of people lost power. They are now claiming they took over Soledar, which is that town. The UK sent 12 Challenger 2 tanks to prepare them for the new Russian offensive that sure is going to come in the spring. Same story I tell every week. It's always something, they already blew something up. But one thing is crazy that I wanted to talk about this week, and that is this Ukrainian soldier that came in that got fired on by artillery, and a grenade was launched at him, and it hit him. And when a grenade hits you, you blow up. I mean, it went into his chest, and it lodged next to his heart. An unexploded grenade.
So, did it hit him, or he accidentally swallowed it? We don't know.
No, it hit him.
It hit him?
Oh yeah. I when I first started looking this up, I couldn't get any information about it, but I thought it was such a cool story. And then now it hit him, and it lodged into his chest cavity. And it had obviously not gone off.
He's like the real life Iron Man with that.
He had a live grenade right next to his heart. And so this crazy Ukrainian surgeon said, you know what, let's take a shot and see if we can get it out. And so they could not use the thing that they use, electrocoagulation. They couldn't use it because they might set off the thing, but they managed to. Did you see the X-ray?
Yeah, it was like close, right beside the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Plain as day, there's a grenade right here.
Yeah.
And so this surgeon dove in, got the grenade out, and it didn't explode. So anyway,
Amazing.
I thought that was such a great story. Man, could you imagine the stress?
Some good news for Ukraine.
Ukraine, yeah, they need some good news right now. You know who else needs some good news is Alexei Navalny. We have talked about him a lot here on this show because we like him. He is the opposition to Putin in Russia. And, you know, they poisoned him, year before last, on an airplane, and he almost died. And they got him back to Russia, and they were not helping him, and they were saying that it wasn't, you know, it was nothing, and blah, blah, blah. So he left the hospital, went to Germany, got treated in Germany for being poisoned. He was poisoned by one of these Russian poisons that they have. In fact, they thought it was in his tea, but it wasn't. It was actually in his underwear. They smeared it in his underwear, and somehow, anyway, ingested it. So anyway, when he went back to Russia, he had broken the law by leaving Russia without permission from the courts because he was, you know, in court for this crazy thing for fraud that they made it up, allegedly made up. That's the whole thing. So he left and he came back, and then they put him in jail. And his health has been doing very poorly in jail, and they won't help him. And he is supposedly maybe dying in jail because they won't help him with the simplest stuff, just giving him antibiotics. So now the news is out all over the world. Somehow they got the news out, and so they gave him some antibiotics, but he's the only person. He's the only person that could really challenge Putin, I think. But they've got him locked up tight in jail. And he was supposed to be there for 2.5 years, but now they've changed his sentence to 9 years.
Oh, wow. How long has he been there?
He's been in jail now for, 1.5 years now?
Oh,
so
what a shame.
He's got a ways to go. So I don't know if Alex is ever going to get out alive, but we hope the best for him.
Right.
You know, here on the show, by the way, this is the World News Jam on DZRJ and RJTV. We're at 7:36 now. And this is Melissa, who is helping me. How do you say your last name?
Racela.
Racela, I like that name. You know, here on the Jam, we have talked a lot about guns and gun violence because we talk about stuff that's going on around the world. And so, obviously, in America, this is where this is leading to, there's a lot of problems with guns. We're always talking about the latest mass murder, and there's literally a mass murder in the United States every week. And the conservative right-wing Republicans, they believe that everybody in the United States has a right to own a gun because of the way the Constitution, which was written in 1778, even military-style rifles that were designed only for killing people. Anyway, and their biggest statement is, guns don't kill people, people kill people. So this week, a 6-year-old boy took a gun from his mother's stuff in the closet, brought the gun to school with him, and shot his teacher in the chest. So
sad.
Yeah. She put her hand out. The bullet went through her hand and hit her in the chest. Thank goodness she put her hand out. So she will live. But the police did an initial investigation, and it turns out that it was not an accident. That this boy got the gun and took it to school to shoot his teacher. What do you do? What do you do in a situation like this?
First and foremost, the gun belonged to the mother.
Yes.
Right?
She legally bought the gun.
She legally buys a gun and then leaves it in an area where the son can take it.
Obviously.
Right?
Because yeah, obviously the son took it. So is she liable?
I think so.
I mean,
because it's an irresponsible gun ownership thing.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to have a loaded gun and I have a 6-year-old boy, man, when I was 6 years old, if you put a gun out there, I would have stole it. I'm a 6-year-old boy. We watch TV. We love guns. But that's why I was asking you, because it was not long, February, where a mother was charged when her 10-year-old shot himself. And a police officer was always charged when he left the gun out, and the toddler took the gun and shot himself.
See, as a mom, we have all those safety first gadgets where you put a cover on the outlets in the outlets.
Yes.
For safety.
Yeah.
Because the kid might get electrocuted. And then the plastics, they have the warning.
Yeah.
Stay away from children. You know, keep this away from a child. That's just a simple plastic. What about a gun?
Yeah. I mean, a gun. I mean, you can get hurt from plastic, but you can really get hurt from a gun.
You can die. Or you can kill.
Yeah, you can, you know. So, yeah, I think, I don't know what to say about this. I mean, or you can just not sell guns to people. That's a whole long discussion. But anyway, that was one of the big news that came out of the United States. One other thing, kind of switching topics here, I was going to say, speaking of committing suicide, this is not suicide. Prince Harry has a new book out.
Yeah. Spare.
Spare. And man, they think that book's going to make $40 million. Not like Prince Harry needs $40 million, but it is one of the fastest. They say it sold as many copies as the latest Harry Potter book. So
I want one.
I have not read. They say it could be the fastest nonfiction, the most nonfiction selling book ever. But by the way, he's going to donate the money that he makes, supposedly to the children of HIV in Africa, which is, I think, was his mother's big charity there. But I have not read the book because it just came out. But supposedly, just from what I've seen on the web, it's about a bereaved boy, a troubled teen, his wartime soldier stuff, being unhappy as a royal, that he eats fast food, that he used cocaine, how he lost his virginity, the family rifts, the time that he went to the North Pole and his genitals froze up, and then he got, when he went to his brother's wedding, they were irritated. What?
Frostbite?
Frostbite on his royals. Anyway, and a lot of stuff about his mother. And he will forever blame the death of his mother on the media. He hates the media, according to this book. And the fact that he and his brother pleaded with their father not to marry Camilla Parker Bowles, who is the current wife of the king. And supposedly he had a very tough relationship with his brother, who was heir to the throne, of course. I mean, go back in English history. What two brothers did not fight when one of them was heir to the throne and the other one wasn't? So, and that's the name Spare. That's
the heir and the spare.
The heir and the spare. And the reason he says that they left the royal family was his wife. He said they were rude, and his brother said that his wife was rude and difficult. They had a fight. They had like a wrestling fight, and Prince Harry got thrown on a ground, and he landed on a dog bowl
that broke.
So anyway, we now know all the inside. And he took cocaine several times, and he did magic mushrooms. One time he took so many magic mushrooms, he thought the toilet was talking to him. So, interesting book. Talked about being in the war, killing Taliban militants.
I guess in a way he wrote the book because he also wants to explain himself.
Yeah.
Not the way the press would always, put the stories in their version.
You look at how they treated Diane, his mother, and then how they've gone after his wife. I mean, they really went after his wife. Wow. So I could see why he might want to leave. I mean, he's not going to be king, and he's got more money than he'll ever need, and so they just left. They wanted to get away from the press. They wanted to get away from the family, and I think they just left. And his is, here's who I am. I'm not what you may think. I take cocaine. I do magic mushrooms. I went to Courtney Cox's apartment and had chocolate psychedelic mushrooms.
He lost his virginity behind a pub or something.
Yeah. He lost his virginity to an older woman.
Yeah.
He said he felt like a stallion, a young stallion. So really,
he's my favorite royal.
Of all the royals, I gotta say, he's the least boring of all of them. But anyway, so there's something for you to read. Spare. Now, moving back to the U.S. really quick, I just want to get through this one story. They've had some really bad luck in the U.S. this week because at one point, the nation had to stop all flights. Now, you stop all the airplanes in a country like the United States for 90 minutes, 10,000 flights were delayed, 1,300 flights were completely canceled. A lot of people said it felt like 9/11, where no flights anywhere in the United States. And it was all because of a database file. A database file that was corrupt, and then it corrupted the backup. So they couldn't get it back on. Now, does this remind you of anything?
Yeah, New Year's Day.
New Year's Day in the Philippines.
Philippines, yeah. Actually, we were in Bacolod and my son missed his flight because all flights were canceled.
All flights were canceled. Because of an air traffic control system, the power went off, or it just went down. So the power system came down.
There was an outage, and then the power backup failed.
Yeah. 56,000 flights or 56,000 passengers were affected, something like that. The worst thing, though, about that was that flights coming from outside the country.
Nobody can fly on Philippine airspace.
Yeah, they had to turn around and go back. This one flight, got halfway from Australia, had to turn around and go back. All the OFWs that had to return. Manny Pangilinan was on a trip from Tokyo. He had to turn around and go back. So, there's this issue, too, about the 511 million... Billion pesos? Is it billion pesos? Or is it million pesos? About the air traffic control system they bought back in 2009. This Czechoslovakian software that they were going to buy, and that was what they were going to use while they were upgrading the system, and it never worked. And so they had to kind of scrap it, or they gave it to the Air Force. Anyway, I can't comment too much about it, but I just thought that's just so, in the Philippines, and there's a lot of senators that are mad about this.
Because it was handled by a leader, and then it was turned over to another leader, and then it was questioned, the software, and then now it's passed on to different people, and now it's obsolete, something like that.
It keeps rebooting on its own. That was the problem it had.
Okay.
It couldn't, it would the position and the altitudes of the planes, it would be wrong. That's very important. If you need to know where the plane is. So anyway, I thought that was a very interesting story. But speaking of crashing in a plane, this is a story that I wanted to get to, and I wanted to get your take on it because this was a big story in Canada this week, and it's all over the news in Canada, and it's about assisted death. And it's a very touchy subject, a very interesting topic, making it, is it illegal to kill yourself? Because it can't really be illegal to kill yourself, because once you're dead, how would you put you in jail? Because you're already dead. I don't know. Anyway, I never quite understood that whole thing about being illegal to kill yourself. But if you want to die and you don't have the physical means to do it, can you ask someone to help you to die without them getting in trouble? And that was a big issue in the United States years ago about this guy that was helping people die, and then he was getting in trouble for helping them die. So what Canada does is, as of 2021, you can ask someone to assist you in killing yourself, and they will not be charged.
Okay.
But what they changed is they added something to the law. So you can assist somebody if you have cancer or you're in pain all the time and you just want to end it. You can get a medical person to come in and help you die. But now they're saying that if you have a mental issue, that you can have somebody help you die if you have just a mental problem.
You don't have to be crazy. You just have mental issue. Yeah,
you have to show that you have a mental issue. Now, for me, I would think that wanting to die is a mental issue.
Right.
Which is kind of insane. But anyway, they are saying that I think in 2021, 3.3% of the deaths in Canada came from assisted deaths. And that's more than 10,000 people died in 2021 from assisted death, assisted euthanasia. But a lot of people are against this thing about mentally ill people being able to have assisted death.
So in Canada, they call it medical assistance in death.
Yeah, so
made
medical euthanasia, I think. is what they call
euthanasia.
it.
Okay.
So, I don't know. It's just, this is one of those subjects that I just wonder, is that the correct thing for them to do? Because now it seems like you can get assisted death from anything. Just say, hey, I feel very sad. My girlfriend left me. My bank, I lost all my money in the stock market. Kill me.
I think it's more of a morality issue.
Yeah, to me it seems like a mental issue.
I mean, if, for example, if you're not crazy, and then you just have depression.
Yeah.
Because people think that depression can be cured, that death is not the answer.
Yeah, because once you take that medicine, there's no going back. There's no cure because you're dead. So, I mean, it seems like if you're depressed, I mean, why don't you take some time and, try some medicine or something, smoke some cannabis. I just thought that was a very fascinating story that they have decided to broaden that, to allow mental illness to be a reason for killing yourself. And, speaking of killing yourself, are you crying? Are you thinking of committing suicide because there's no onions to eat in the Philippines?
So expensive.
So expensive to have onions.
I like to cook. That's why cooking without onions is just the hardest thing.
Right now in the Philippines, this is an international story, by the way, so that's why we're bringing it up. Onions in the Philippines cost more than meat.
Yes,
it's
or chicken.
Three times the cost of chicken and twice as much as beef. 1 kilogram of onions costs more in the Philippines than the minimum wage for a full day's work.
Wow.
So, and of course the Chinese have already been caught for trying to smuggle illegal onions into the country. Chinese smugglers tried to bring in $362,000 worth of onions hidden in boxes of bread and pastries, and then white onions that were hidden in packages marked clothes.
Oh, wow.
So
there are a lot of names about onions. Like rich people are eating onions.
Rich people are hoarding all the onions. Over in Rockwell, there's houses full of onions.
No, they said that this guy smells like onions, and then rich guy.
Rich guy, because he smells like onions.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that a strange thing that would be the thing? That's the thing that the Philippines is having trouble with right now. Like in, what was it, 2 years ago, the United States had big trouble with toilet paper. Things that you would just think, I can't believe.
For granted.
I can't believe that, toilet paper is, what was it, it'd be 30, 20, is 1,200 pesos, per pack in the United States for a while. People were paying anything for toilet paper, which, in the Philippines, we don't need toilet paper. But in the United States, they need toilet paper. But now in the Philippines, it's now onions. Because of these issues that are going on with supply chains.
I don't exactly know why. They said there's a shortage of supply.
Yeah, they said there's supply chain issues. I mean, there's that for everything. I mean, there's a reason why everything is going up. For some reason, onions are extremely valuable right now.
Because last year, when I joined a bike race in Nueva Ecija, because Nueva Ecija is the onion capital of the Philippines. And we were riding the in between onion fields. So, and then everyone who podiumed in the race, they gave us like 1 sack of onions, which was 700 pesos per kilo.
I was going to say, man, I'll be giving out free onions now. I'll be selling them off. But I don't know how to relate this next story to onions, but I want to talk a little bit about, because I just love this story that's going on in the United States, right? By the way, are you a liar?
It depends.
It depends. Yeah, me too. That's what I was going to say. It depends. Sometimes I'm a liar.
With my kids, they know that I don't like to lie.
Yeah, that's good. Don't lie to your kids.
Because I'm a bad liar.
Yeah, don't lie to your kids. I'm a very good liar when it comes to my age. I can just knock things out. And when I have to, when my Gcash really has money in it, I can say, my Gcash is out. I can do it with a straight face. I've gotten so good at it now. Anyway, when I know somebody's going to want to borrow money,
okay,
I can lie about you. But the whole reason I'm bringing this up is because this story will not go away in the United States about George Santos, and it just keeps getting better. And I talked about it last week. And I know I shouldn't talk about things too much, but it just keeps getting better and better. He is a U.S. congressman. He was just elected U.S. congressman. He won the election, was sworn in. He's a great sounding candidate. 34 years old, young, son of immigrants, graduated from public college in New York, worked for Goldman Sachs and Citigroup, became a successful financier, started an animal rescue charity. He's gay, he's Jewish, he's a Republican. His mother died in 9/11. His employees died at the Florida gay nightclub when they shot that place up. I mean, he is the perfect candidate. And he got himself elected. The problem is, every single thing that I just listed is not true.
Oh my God.
I mean, when they keep confronting him. You're Jewish? Well, you're not Jewish. Oh, well, no, I'm not. I'm Jew-ish. Yeah. So, anyway, the news story this week is his roommate saying that he does not just lie. He also, when he was living with them, things went missing like phones and dress shirts and checks.
That's terrible.
And they confronted him and they yelled at him, and he was like, why are you yelling at me? And he's accusing them back. Well, anyway, he appeared at a pro-Trump rally, which was right before January 6th, the day before January 6th, where the big insurrection, and he was wearing the scarf of one of the roommates that he had stolen.
Evidence.
He had stolen. So this week, the Republican Party there in New York came out and said, you got to go. You got to resign. You have to resign.
So he did?
We are not going to let you back in the Republic. You can't even come in our office anymore. Oh. Don't even bother coming back here in the office. He won't resign.
Okay.
He says, I'm not going to resign. Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, the new Speaker of the House, who has like no power now, he said, well, the people voted him in. Yeah, the people voted him in. The people voted in that guy, the guy that I just read off the stuff.
Right.
They didn't vote this guy who's claims to be gay and was married up until last year.
Poser.
My goodness. Anyway, that's the. It's just funny now that you can lie and become a U.S. congressman from that. One of the most powerful positions you can be in, really, in the world. They decide stuff that happens, policies that happen all over the world. And this guy, just this young guy who came up with this incredible story. He never worked for Goldman Sachs. He never worked for. He was never, and he's now has another problem where, he was working for this company down in Florida, and now they're being investigated for a Ponzi scheme. What do you do? How far? And I know, how far can a lie go?
Well, with the technology today,
it's easy to lie.
Yeah, you can be a troll and people won't know.
You could make up all kinds of. I mean, especially in the Philippines. When I watch Philippine Facebook, oh my goodness, there's some stuff on there. I'm like, oh my gosh. But it's got to be embarrassing to the Republican Party. I know they've got to get rid of this guy. They don't want to get rid of him because if they do get rid of him, there has to be a special election, and a Democrat could win. And the divide in Congress now is very, very slight. So I know why they want to keep him, but they know that they can't. How could this guy ever stand up and give a speech? People are going to boo him.
I know. With social media right now, it's actually very difficult to lie.
Yeah,
because you can just Google and then see that you're full of
how this guy thought he was going to get away with it. How did he think he's going to get away? Of course we can Google him.
Right.
And then once one comes out, then it's a waterfall. I mean, politicians lie. I know. Politicians lie. But you can't completely lie about everything. But speaking about not lying, we are at the end of our show. Because it is near time for our show to be. So that is not a lie. We are definitely got to bed. But I would like to thank Melissa for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Out. It was such great fun to talk to you here on the show. Good luck on your triathlons. I will try and
You didn't lie about your birthday.
Oh, no, I did not lie about my birthday.
Okay.
By the way, interesting fact, we have the same birthday.
See.
So I haven't lied about that yet. Anyway, for me, Eric Lecain here on the World Juice Jam, and Melissa, we will hopefully be back again very soon next week. So thank you so much for joining us here on RJTV and DZRJ, and we will see everybody again next week. Everybody be safe out there, and we'll see you then.
The views and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessarily those